You believe a doctor caused you significant harm and injury, and now you're trying to determine whether or not you actually have a valid basis for a case. You want to know what happens once you do that and you reach out to an attorney? Come join me for a walk through the neighborhood as I share with you the answer to that question. Hi, I'm Gerry Oginski. I'm a New York medical malpractice and personal injury attorney. All right, you believe something was done wrong. You're not entirely sure what was done wrong, but you know you went into the hospital, you were pretty much fine. And now you came out with significant, horrible injuries. You stayed much, much longer than you should have. And you had to undergo weeks and weeks of rehabilitation. And now you are disabled. You have significant injuries. You can no longer do the type of activities that you used to do. And now you're trying to figure out, how am I going to put food on the table? How am I going to go back to work? How am I going to interact with my wife, my kids, my spouse? How am I going to do that? And finally, you begin to think, or maybe somebody puts a bug in your ear and says, or whispers in your ear and says, you know what? I think your doctor or hospital staff may have done something wrong to cause you all of these harms and injuries. You should go speak to an attorney. Well, now that prompts you to reach out to the best attorney you can find. And now you go in and you speak to the attorney and you tell them your entire story. And now it takes a great deal of time to explain the details of everything that happened to you. The attorney, in order to properly evaluate your case in New York, has to do a number of things. An attorney cannot, in New York, simply go ahead the next day and start a lawsuit on your behalf. That is not going to be permitted. Instead, if the attorney believes that you have a basis for a case, and this is important, and that your matter is timely, because there are strict time limits within which you have to bring a lawsuit against a careless doctor or hospital staff in New York. So if your attorney believes that you may have a basis for a case, and your attorney believes that your matter is timely, the next step is for your attorney to go ahead and obtain all of your medical records. Now, why is this necessary? It's critically important to obtain not just some of your records, but all of your medical records relating to this incident, as well as your prior medical records. Your attorney has to go through and literally read every single page of every single record. Why? Because the attorney has to understand what your case is really all about. He has to understand the details of what occurred. And then, and this is the most important aspect of the evaluation, once your attorney has done that, he now has to take all of your records and send them off to a qualified medical expert for review. This is the most important component of whether you have a valid case in New York. It is a medical expert that is required to review your medical records to determine whether or not your doctors violated the basic standards of medical care. And if they did, whether those violations from the standard of care, that wrongdoing, whether they were a cause of your injuries. It doesn't have to be the cause, it only has to be a cause. And then our expert has to determine that if the doctors violated the basic standards of medical care and caused you harm and injury, now we have to look at the extent of your injuries. How badly were you injured? How disabled are you? What are the types of things you can no longer do as a result of these injuries that you could do before? Only if our expert confirms each one of those three elements can we come back to you and tell you, okay, Mrs. Jones, our expert has confirmed that you do have a valid basis for a case. We are now, on your behalf, going to go ahead and start a lawsuit against the various doctors and hospital staff who treated you, who we believe were careless and caused you all this harm and injury. That is what occurs when you go to an attorney to evaluate whether or not you have a basis for a case. If our medical expert is unable to confirm that you have a valid basis for a case, then we have to come back to you and tell you that, and tell you, I'm sorry, we can't help you. Our best suggestion would be to try and reach out to another attorney. So the evaluation part is the most critical component of the entire case. If we have confirmation by a medical expert, and oftentimes we will need more than one expert to evaluate your case. There are often multiple medical specialists who are needed to evaluate different components, different parts of your case. Once we have that confirmation, now we can call you up and tell you, okay, Mrs. Jones, our expert confirms everything. Now we are going forward, and here are the various people that will be included in your lawsuit. So why do I share this quick information with you? I share it with you just to open your eyes, to help you understand a brief insight and a brief look at what goes on behind the scenes after you go to an attorney and you say, listen, I think something was done wrong, and now I'm no longer able to do all these things that I was able to do before. I need someone to look at these records to tell me whether or not I have a case. You know, I recognize you have questions or concerns about your own matter. If your matter did happen in New York and you are thinking about bringing a lawsuit but have not done so because you still have questions that need to be answered, what I invite you to do is pick up the phone and call me. You know, I answer questions like yours every single day, and I'd love to chat with you. You can reach me at 516-487-8207 or by email at Gerry, Gerry, at Oginski-law.com. That's it for today's video. I'm Gerry Oginski. Have a fantastic day.